cellar in the house known as the Abbey in the village of Mottisham in West Midshire. It was now being restored to its ancient place, hypothetically at least, for the actual evidence was slim and ambiguous, in the south porch of the church of St. Eata in the above-named village. A very rare dedication indeed, and territorially limited. And if there was a person in the parish who had any very clear idea of who St. Eata was, it certainly was not the vicar, the Reverend Andrew Bright, who was 31 and devoted to rugby, God, or his extremely simple idea of God, rock climbing, youth clubs, and his own advancement, in that order. He was himself, however, solid, worthy, and real, and knew a real, solid, worthy work of art when he saw one. He had jumped at the offer of the door, and ruthlessly adapted the 19th century south porch, the latest of many renovations to St. Eata's long-suffering fabric, to accommodate it. With the effect achieved, he was more than content. It was a very beautiful, thought-provoking, and virtually permanent door. That it had other and more disquieting properties was not yet apparent. As for the knocker, it was of antique iron, rust-proof practically forever, of a lovely crude texture that gave acute tactile pleasure to anyone handling it. The surface was not quite smooth, being very slightly pitted all over, so that it clung to the hand with a live, bracing contact. It was made in the form of a beast's head, wreathed in leaves that never grew on any tree, as the beast had never roamed in any jungle but that of Apocalypse, and in the wide, generous, patently amiable jaws was proffered, rather than gripped, a large twisted ring of iron, thick enough to fill the palm. Through this door the bishop emerged, radiant and serene, beautifully robed and crozier in hand, at the conclusion of the service, with the Reverend Andrew and the living representatives of the Maxon Martell family at his heels, on his way to the vicarage for tea with muffins, scones, and fruit-cake, suitable to an English Sunday. Traffic on the B-road through the village was halted to allow his procession to make its way across the green with becoming dignity and deliberation, which took some time. The village itself looked on from a discreet distance, tolerantly unsmiling and unfrowning, missing not a trick. Comparatively few of the inhabitants had been among the congregation inside St. Eata's. Mottisham was a reassuringly normal English village. Motorists, impatient but resigned, sat back and waited for the magnificently aesthetic old man, less ingenuous than he appeared, to withdraw his train inside the confines of the vicarage grounds, a manoeuvre over which he took his time. Who knows when the arrested mind will open and the light dawn? Detective Chief Inspector George Fells and his wife Bunty were on their way back from a weekend by the Welsh coast, probably the last of the year, for it was mid-October, and the best of the weather was already gone. They had left immediately after lunch, to avoid the normal concerted rush back to the Midlands, only to find that even more people than usual had been visited by the same idea. The trouble with mid-Wales is that the mountains render whole tracts of it impossible for major, or indeed any, roads, and confine the motorists to the few main arteries. The inevitable, boring, irritating nose-to-tail procession home was something George detested, but for many miles could not escape. But towards the Midshire border he swung, thankfully, off to the right and took the minor road that threaded the long cleft of Middlehope between the hills. It was longer, and probably a few of the regular commuters to the Welsh coast had discovered its advantages by now, but even so, it was a relief after the main road. Through the few stark villages, with their half-Welsh, half-English names, they made better time, and had something better to look at than the butt end of the car in front. Road and river wound inextricably along the valley.